Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a pretty exceptional classic 1911 build here from one of the greats, certainly, of the last I don't know, 40 years or so here. Richard Heinie. Mr. Heinie has been building guns in Illinois for well over 40 years now. He at one time, worked for International Harvester during the day and built guns in the evening. In those days, some of that building guns was just modifying guns for competitive shooters and law enforcement agents in his local community. Of course, probably best known for his iron sights, his aftermarket iron sights. Sights that we still use a lot of here in this shop today. Still a very popular sight. His Glock sights are very popular. Probably one of his best-selling SKUs. The beginning of his career was in the 70s. Richard was working on guns in his little shop and managed to get enough notoriety to get mentioned in American Handgunner, which is kind of like getting put on the cover of Rolling Stone for a gunsmith in those days. So he got an article about him in Handgunner, and he really took off after that. That would have been in 1977. He was already making his own sights at that time, fixed sights that had a larger flat rear surface. And that was angled backwards, much like the Bomar blade you see here, to cut the glare. And then, of course, he started making dovetail front sights when those became popular in the 80s. He started actually marketing his iron sights in 1982 in American Handgunner. He started placing advertisements for his sights. Prior to that, he pretty much just installed them on people's guns. Didn't really sell them for other gunsmiths to install. He cites his major gunsmithing influences as Armand Swenson and Jim Hoag, which plays out very clearly in this pistol. Some of his earlier pistols you'd see K-frame sight installs, a la Armand Swenson, and of course the squared guards and whatnot. This pistol here, if it was not marked Heinie and was sitting on a gun show table, you'd look at it and say, yeah, Jim Hoag probably built that gun. It's that good, and it's that good of an homage to Jim Hoag's work. Richard Heinie even bought a Hoag long slide that didn't have a squared guard. He called Jim Hoag to have him add the square guard to it, and Jim said, well, you can do it better than I can, you do it. And Richard said, well, I'd really like you to do it since it's your pistol. So he did end up sending that out to Jim, and Jim squared it and checkered it for him. But that showed a mutual respect between those two gentlemen, that Jim said, well, you do it as good or better than I do. There's no sense in sending it out. But of course, to keep the line on that pistol as a Jim Hoag custom, as all Jim, he sent it to Jim to have it done, which was the right decision. So he really was very popular for building in the late 70s and into the 80s, and built, still building some pistols, not at a high rate of speed. He's at 82 or so now, but he's still, from my understanding, in the shop pretty much every day and still working on stuff. And they of course, pretty much became a sight company in the 90s, I would say. Towards the late 90s, early 2000s, their main line of income was on sights and less on building guns and customizing guns, which is the way of many gunsmiths. You develop something that people like and market that, and that gives you the opportunity to not have to work leaned over the vise all day, every day. This beautiful little Colt left Hartford in 1973. 7 years later, Richard Heinie got his hands on it. The barrel is a Barstow, dated 1980. The From the top here, we've got a staked and soldered front sight with a slight ramp to it, common style that you'd see, you know, Swenson or Hoag doing in the day. We've got a bar stow match barrel and bushing in this Commander. We've got a nicely low-mounted Bomar sight, and the rear of the slide perfectly checkered, just like Hoag would have done them. The interesting thing that would tell this apart from a Hoag, perhaps, is the Commander ring hammer here. He has chamfered it deeply. It's a larger hole, but that hole isn't the full diameter all the way through. So what he did is he took, without measuring it, I'd have to guess that that was probably a 5/16 or so ball end mill, and took it down, and so the two sides dish together in the middle. It's a very neat look, and different from Hoag's treatment of the Commander hammer, where Hoag would make the whole oval and then usually checker the rowel of the hammer. He does have a Hoag grip safety installed on this gun, Armand Swenson's ambidextrous safety. The trigger guard and the checkering really speak to Hoag's influence too. Checkered in really the same style, forged square in very much the same style as Hoag was doing. And the checkering is hand checkered bordered, so it doesn't run off the frame onto the flats. It stops dead. There's a border filed in, and that's something I would love to get better at myself. It's really outstanding work, and one way you can tell, I suppose, generic checkering from some of these maestros of the 70s and 80s who would border their checkering, and really for no other reason than it looks good, right? Certainly running the file off the round and hiding your overruns under the grips, there's nothing wrong with that. It's very functional, but it's just an extra step. Beautifully beveled magwell, opened as big as you can make it. The rounded or arched mainspring housing has been rounded in the heel here and checkered. So checkering the arched mainspring housing was something that Jim Hoag did a lot. Now Hoag would file back these side panels so that you didn't have any snagging, but Richard here has done a nice thing by not pointing those edges up. There's not really any sharpness to that, which I certainly would appreciate if I were going to carry a gun like this. This beautiful little gun really has lived a pretty charmed life. It's got a slight idiot scratch there, but otherwise really shockingly good condition for 45 years old or so. The gun's nice and tight. Of course, it's marked with Richard Heinie's RH number, this one being number 123, 123rd gun off his bench. It's marked here under the thumb safety as well as under the slide with that RH number. And then R. Heinie underneath the serial number, as he commonly did. The trigger is an interesting piece in this gun, not something you see a ton of, but he took a medium greeter or similar trigger and then cut a cutout, sort of like the National Match triggers had, the Colt National Match triggers had. Interesting side note, Richard Heinie's favorite 1911 is a Commander. He's a big fan of the Commander. Certainly built more government model 5-inch guns than anything, as most of us do. But his preferred model is the Commander length guns. Richard Heinie, as he's aged, he was approached by Mark Stone and the guys from Nighthawk, and they did a great thing with working with him. They actually brought him down to Arkansas a number of times to train and oversee some of their smiths in some of his techniques. So they thought enough of Richard's work to bring him in and pay him to come down and basically give them some of his signature moves. And they of course still make the Heinie model pistols. There was the Lady Hawk and the Heinie long slide and the 5-inch Heinie. I forget what name that gun had, but Some of the earliest ones even had Heinie marked barrels and Heinie magwells on them. The magwell Richard designed bolted on to the frame under the grip, so no welding or soldering was required, and could be easily installed by guys who maybe just had a mill, or even if you just had a drill press and files, you could put one on if you were dedicated enough. Really a great example. I'm honored to have handled it and had it pass through the shop here. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and please subscribe, and we appreciate y'all tuning in. We've got some custom long guns probably coming up next, and after that, well, we'll see. But thanks again for tuning in.